holding space on Fridays pretty much from now on. I mean, that's our intention, is holding space for conversation. And when we do it, it's kind of like just food for thought. And what do we think about this? And how do we, like, that's what our intention is. Hi, Tracy from Wisconsin. And hi, Beatrice from North Chicago, masquerading as Tara, and Dustin from Pendleton, Indiana. Hi, Sandra. Nice to see you again. Sandra was really, really helpful yesterday or earlier this week. Was it earlier this week? The grandparenting one, right, Sandra?
And you're joining us from LA, so it's what, 9 there.
And Casey from the UP. Awesome. Well, it's time to start. So we're going to get started. And today's topic is children's challenging behavior and the 5 love languages. And Alexandra and I are going to be riffing off each other, but I'm going to mostly be the host, and she's going to be the I don't know, what would you say?
The trusty co-pilot, or the other superhero.
Awesome.
Batman and Robin.
Yes. So I don't know if this is we'll just go to the ways to engage. So the chat is the primary way, but this time we really hope that people will raise their hands and say some things, because it's a meaty conversation. And sometimes, you can give a little bit more detail or get into more depth when you talk it out. So we're going to ask for people to raise hands, and we're going to model here, like, kind of thoughtful thinking about the questions. And we only have a few questions today. So when you do that, if you raise your hand, Andrew, who's in the background making everything work, will unmute you, and then you'll need to unmute yourself, and then you can speak. It's not that complicated, but that's where it goes. And Colette wants us to get going with it. So we'll move to the next slide and remind people that whenever Be Strong Families does anything, we have agreements. And the reason for this agreements is that we recognize that we co-create this safe space together. And without all of you, it wouldn't be happening. So if you agree to be here now and treat other people the way you want to be treated and speak from your own experience, please write "I agree" in the chat. And then we will get started, and I'll give you a little bit of the backstory about this love languages presentation. Next slide, Andrew. So the 5 love languages, and they've been around. Gary Chapman wrote the first book, I think 15 years ago. Maybe it was more. I don't know the exact date, but the insight behind the 5 love languages is that we love other people the way we like to be loved. So, like, think of it like a language. If you speak French, you're likely to speak French to other people. But if they speak German, they won't necessarily understand your French. So his insight was, love is like that. So we give people what in our language, and they receive in their language. So he identified these 5 different languages, and they are receiving gifts, words of affirmation, acts of service, physical touch, and quality time. And he said everybody has a primary love language, and some of us are multilingual, right? Like, some of us speak a lot of languages, and some of us it's the primary one, and some of us have 2 primary ones. But we wanted you to find out, if you haven't already, we included it in the Zoom registration, but if you haven't already, we want you to find your love language. So Andrew's going to put that link in the chat, and you can just kind of like go there and fill it out. It's very fast. And we're also going to launch a poll for those of you who already know your love language, to be able to see what love languages we have here. So what is your primary love language? And if you're just filling it out while we're doing the poll, that's fine. It's, no pressure. Just we want everybody to be able to participate. And while you're filling out the poll, I'll just say, like, words of affirmation means what it says. It means that you need to be told you look great, or I love you, or you need to have words. Words are really important. Little notes. Words are really important. Receiving gifts, you feel loved when somebody thinks of you and gives you a small gift. Acts of service, when someone goes out of their way to, like, do something for you, especially if it's not easy for them, you feel loved. Physical touch is not sexual physical touch, because Gary Chapman says everybody needs sex, in their primary relationships. But this is about like you want to hold hands, or you want to be touched, or you want, massage, or like that you feel loved when you're in physical contact with somebody. And quality time, and that's when you spend, quality time together. You go to the park for a walk. You go out on a date. You make time to spend with each other. So those are, in a nutshell, the 5 love languages. And let's see what we got on the poll. Who we have, what we have. Acts of service. Oh, look at that. That is not surprising with this group.
Right, exactly.
Knowing this group, that is not surprising. And quality time is number 2. So like, we want you to answer this question. Like, what is your love language, and how does the whole idea of love languages resonate with you? So Alexandra, do you want to like kick it off?
Sure. So my love language, like the rest of this group, mostly, is acts of service. And I just recently had heard about the love languages, but I just, like, a few in the webinar, I had to take the poll. I had never taken the test. So it came up. I wasn't really, really shocked, because I do feel I love to give. I'm a giver, and like giving gives me just as much joy as receiving. So that's one way that it resonated, that it was actually accurate. The other way is I'm very curious to see how that shows up for the person that I'm dating. I think the way you explained it about speaking a different language, I can like look in past relationships and be like, ooh, maybe that's why there was this constant glitch where I didn't feel like I was getting what I needed, and the person didn't feel like they were getting what they needed. And who knows, not to say this is the end all be all, because there's like other things that happen, other factors, but maybe they would have created a better understanding. So moving forward, I definitely will make sure that anyone I'm dating, like, look, you gotta take this test. And so I think the idea, is really awesome, just in the sense that we do communicate. If we communicate, everything else differently, why wouldn't we communicate the way that we love different from other people? So
yeah, I'll riff on that, Alexander, which is mine. I have 2 primary love languages, and all of them are in there somewhere. But my primary love language it changes. It flips between words of affirmation and physical touch. So verbal is really important. I need to hear, I love you. I need to hear, I need to talk, and I need to be listened to. And then the physical touch piece, I mean, that's really hard during the pandemic, which is, I think it's why it's like becoming so, because I'm not with anyone. So my pet, that's where I think that's where pets come in, like the physical touch, like they curl up next to you, you can rub their belly, like that's, but physical touch and words of affirmation. And I'll say, like, in my relationships, I had a partner once his was acts of service. And he would like to come home in the middle of the night or late, and then have me get up and make him a hamburger. Like, that was how he felt loved. Like, if I would actually stop sleeping and get up and make him food, that was what he felt loved. The sacrifice. You see what I'm saying? For me, people can do stuff for me all the time, and I just feel guilty. I don't want you to do for me like that, So it's interesting. I mean, that's where it resonates with me also, where if someone's going to like spend a lot of time with me or give me a bunch of gifts, it's not going to do it for me. Like, I'm not going to, I can see the gifts, and I'm going to think like they're trying to buy my affection,
Interesting. Yeah. So my second one is quality time. And that makes sense. They were close, very close to each other. And definitely, I'm more so about quality time than the gifts. I'd rather you be like present with me than the gifts. And then with the gifts thing, I'm more like, if you make something for me, like you create something for me, that resonates more than you like buying something for me. So anybody else in the chat?
Yeah, let's hear from other people. Raise your hand or in the chat. my mom is a quality time person. And when I knew that, like it allowed me to, I understood why she wanted me to just come and be with her. Before it didn't make any sense to me. I was like, we aren't doing anything.
And we're talking on the phone. Why do I have to like be there? But yeah, I'm definitely the same way.
So
Any
let's hear from you all. What's your love language and how does this whole idea resonate with you? How does it work in your life?
I don't see. Let me see if there's anything.
We
So
know
maybe
you.
people are taking. Oh, here we go.
Yia says, I think your love language can be influenced by the culture you're raised in also. In the HMOO culture, physical touch is frowned upon, especially in public. A part of me has sometimes felt like something was wrong with me or my family. But again, I think culture influences the way we interact with each other. And Myra says, I feel like I'm all five.
That's interesting though. Whether it is, like the whole piece around culture. So there's sometimes there's this dichotomy that's happening because this is what's appropriate expression of love in your culture, but then this is how you feel on the inside.
Well, I'm just going to say that I am part of a culture where physical touch, public display of affection is not okay. So it's not like I want to be like hanging on people or, like, but it's still, nevertheless, that's what helps me feel loved in my house, so.
And it's maybe, oh, go ahead.
Okay, Sandra's going to have to get off, but Marcy says, my love language is 30% receiving gifts, but I know I love acts of service too and hugs. And Colette says, I think quality time is my love language. I'd rather spend meaningful time with my husband than receiving gifts.
I so identify with that. And what I was going to say, I think it might also be beyond culture, generational, because I know that like my parents' parents, they show, particularly my grandfather, it was based on the acts of service, was based on the gifts. And my mom didn't really like that in that generation. She said she was very intentional about hugs and kisses and probably made us like super affectionate because of what she saw in the generation before. So the culture piece made me think about the generations too, which still is connected to culture, but and so
My
then
eldest two main love languages. One is acts of service and words of affirmation. I love to hear that I am appreciated. Awesome. So I think, we wanted to kick off like and Tracy says 4 of the love languages are closed. Gifts was 0. I like to give gifts more than getting gifts.
yeah, and Angela said is 36. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, you got it.
No, go on.
Oh no, I was saying that Angela was before Tracy, and she said her love language was acts of service and quality time. She's excited to see what her husband is.
Great. And Portia says quality time, socializing, playing games. And Tammy's primary love language is quality time. And Portia says, sitting together, listening to music. Yeah, and I think it's not, we don't want to, this isn't the be all and end all. It's just a lens. It's a way of thinking about it, and it's a conversation starter. So if we just start from the basic insight that people are different and that what you like to get might not be the same thing as what someone else, it allows you to have the conversation. Colette says, I think I'm uncomfortable with words of affirmation because I can't see what people are talking about when I get compliments or I'm appreciated. Interesting. So yeah, I mean, that is the thing that I was trying to bring up also, is sometimes like our love language is our love language, and we tend to see other ones through a more negative lens, like that it makes us uncomfortable. So this we wanted, like with Be Strong Families, whenever we do any training, we don't want to have everything just live in our heads and be an idea. And we don't want it always to be applied to our work before we've grounded it in ourselves. So that's how we train on the protective factors as well, is like find it in yourself, find it in your family, and then we can talk about, what to do with it in a larger world. So thank you for playing with us this far. But the real topic here for this webinar is about children's challenging behavior and the 5 love languages. And I'm just going to tell you that we've had a number of webinars on managing children's challenging behavior. One of them was on, what was it called? It was called mistaken goals. um, understanding mistaken goals. There's also like positive discipline, a lot of how do we manage children's behavior. And when people were giving, a lot of times when I've participated in those kinds of things, something's gnawing at me in the back of my head. Like, this sounds like we're just trying to like control or manipulate or, like coerce a kind of a behavior, and in a rote way, instead of like thinking about the relationship and how does the relationship we have with our children affect their behavior, and that made me flip to love languages and think, I wonder what love languages, how you could use love languages with relation to children's challenging behavior. So that was where the genesis of this is. And I'm not saying, caveat, it's not like, okay, if you speak your child's love language often enough, they won't have any challenging behavior. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying it's the only tool in the toolbox, but it is, I feel like it might be something that is a tool in the toolbox. So let's go to the next slide. So, okay, so I know that some of you just took the quiz yourself and you're just starting to think about this love language thing. But the question is, when you think about your kids or your grandkids and you think about their love languages, how do your children's love languages relate to yours? Are they the same? Are they different? And what does that mean for your relationship? So what does it mean if your children's love language is different from yours, for example? So Alex, do you want to go first?
Yes. So looking at this, and I'm gonna have to have for those who've been on here with me before, I have identical twins. They are 14 years old and they're girls. And when I looked at this at a glance, we're going to take this weekend though. I think one twin love language is words of affirmation, and I think the other one is touch. And so because of that, because mine is acts of service, that might be explained the closeness that we have. Um, because I would do all of those based on the fact to me that it would be like an act of service. I think that, and I think gifts is both their secondary one because they always, like all kids, ask for stuff. But I think that because mine is acts of service, if as they get older, if they like, because they always say, "Oh, mommy, when we get our money, we're gonna do this," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't need that." Like, I don't really want them to buy me stuff. I would rather, have them do something for me. So I think that what it means for our relationship is once they both know theirs, some of the times when we're kind of like doing like this, I think it would make it easier. And then I think it would really make it easier for their whole twin dynamic because they like fuss with each other, then they love each other, and then they fuss with each other. And I really think it's because their love languages are different. So I'm gonna have to report back. It's gonna be interesting. And maybe I'll report back on Friday quickly when we do Inspiration Friday, because I wonder if they know theirs, would it stop all of the bickering all the time? They love each other fiercely, but I do think one wants to hear it, and then the other one is like very touchy, expresses themselves in touch, and sometimes the other one's like, I don't want to be bothered. So yeah, I think that's what it will mean for us, and just maybe create a little bit more understanding and giving me a different lens of how to view them.
I was just thinking about that touch and bickering. And I know for me, like when I've had partners who understood me and when I would get like intense or heated or whatever, I had one boyfriend when I was really young who would hug me. He would just come over and he would just hug me, and all of my tension and stress and fight would just go away. It was like completely diffused. So I was thinking about that, like that one of your twins needs to hear I love, like, come on, you're great, I love you, whatever. The other one might be like, you look like you need a hug. Do you
Yeah.
Do
you want some rubs? You want me to rub you?
Yeah. So what we really would love people to raise their hand and talk with us. Tracy says, my adult son likes quality time. We don't see each other that much. And when we're together, we go for walks and play board games. And Maria says, mostly different. And for me, it creates conflicts. Acts of service is my primary love language, and my 3 children don't think to clean their rooms or areas or complete their homework, and let alone help each other with homework. Yeah, so I feel like that's another aspect of this, Maria, right? Like you can feel unloved when someone is not speaking your language. Like if your language is acts of service and you ask somebody to do something for you, like please clean up your room, or please, you know, do your homework by this time, that you can feel like you ask them to do it. It's an act of service for you. That would help them, you feel loved. And if they don't do it, they don't love you.
Well, Maria, I'm glad you brought that up because other than, like I said, how great they were, but that is the one place where we have conflict because my kids do not clean up their room when I ask them. And that's like our constant. And I do feel like I do all of this stuff and you ask me to do something and I'm Johnny on the spot. And I actually clean your room and it's like hours later. Oh. So yeah, thank you for bringing that side up because that's going to be interesting too to see when we had that conversation with the kids. Tawana says, I love quality time, but this day and age, it's next to impossible to do due to the use of cell phones, sadly. Yeah. I just take the phone away sometimes, because especially with the kids.
How about others? Would like to share? Who would like to share? Raise their hand.
Brave soul, join us in the conversation. We need you so we can learn from you. Colette says she totally relates. My 20-year-old has to be home due to the pandemic from college, and she does not clean her room. Yeah, it's rough, man. That's all I can say. Because it was like, when we were young, it was like you had to get your room clean. And I wasn't like, super neat. I would at least like hide the stuff under the bed or hide the stuff in the closet. Then it'd just be everywhere, just everywhere. Robin says, I've learned that I cannot place my expectations on other people and they don't always think of things in the same way. And then Colette said, yes.
That's true, and I think that's part of what this insight of this book and this topic is that people don't think of things in the same way. But if we want to communicate with them, first of all, it's very hard not to have expectations, right? It's just, I think that's, to me, that was a big relief, in reading the book, is like it's normal to want something to want something. It's normal to expect that you're going to get it. And you learn that you can't, or that you're not going to, but there's a better chance of getting it if you could open the line of communication and tell people what you need. I mean, that was one of my takeaways from this. If I can say to someone who wants, let's not do the all caps, but if you can say to someone who is, who cares about you, like, I feel better when you do this, they'll try. Yeah.
Yep. And so Tammy said that I'm pretty sure my kids and both grandkids are quality time as well. We seem happiest when we're doing things together, playing games, making and creating something and reading. And then Robin, it's important to be honest about how things make you feel. Portia says you have to set limits, no cell during dinner, not doing church, no cell, focus on when I'm engaged with my children in conversations. And then Angela says she agrees with Robin.
I wonder what cell phone love language is.
The act of, I don't know.
Telling people how you feel. When I see all caps, I think somebody's yelling at me. Like I feel like, I've done something. So that's an example of us communicating about it.
Yeah, because my dad writes in all caps, and it's at first, and he didn't know. He thought it was because he can't see and he doesn't want to wear his glasses. I was like, you can't really write in all caps. That means like yelling. He's like, oh, but he still writes in all caps. Maria says, I need to be more intentional with honoring my kids' love language, and this discussion is reminding me of that. And then Katrina laughed, and Robin said, not intended it that way at all.
See, and Robin, you were the one that was saying like we have to not have expectations, and we also have to tell each other the way we feel. So see how we modeled that, Robin?
Perfect.
Could have been a plan.
Tabby says we always ask for consent and expect them to. They usually don't consent to hugs, but they will consent to horseplay anytime.
Awesome. So we have another, we looked on the internet, I think, and found someone who was talking about the same thing we were thinking about. And it's a video, about a 6-minute video, and he goes through all the love languages and discipline and parenting and the love languages. So we are not saying this is the be all and end all. We're saying this is a conversation starter, and at least it's connecting, it's on the topic and it's connecting what the ideas that we had. So we're going to ask us to listen to watch this video. And yes, we will share the link for the video in the chat, but Andrew, we can't hear it.
Language. If kids will be staying at home for remote learning or homeschooling, I believe parenting becomes more challenging. I heard this from the parents of my students. They are now convinced that being with children for 7 hours or more at school is a real struggle. So, what are the things that you can do to discipline your children or younger siblings that can help strengthen your relationship with them? I think it's timely for us to recall about the 5 love languages of children by Dr. Gary Chapman to help address not only discipline concerns but also the social and emotional well-being of our children or younger siblings. This is Teacher Rail. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. What are the 5 love languages of children? How do you relate with your children using these love languages? How do you use these love languages to address misbehaviors of children? These are the questions we will be answering today. So, what are the 5 love languages of children? According to Dr. Gary Chapman, they are words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. If your child's love language is physical touch, is it recommended to lay your hands on him? If your child's love language is quality time, is it okay to give her a timeout? What do you think? Yes or no? Make sure to watch this video till the end to find out. For now, let's talk more about words of affirmation. Your child's love language is words of affirmation if they express sweet expressions, if they are more verbally expressive of the love and appreciation, and they will be delighted whenever you give verbal praise and affection. How can you relate with them? You have to talk with them because they want to have a heart-to-heart talk with you. One-on-one communication is what they prefer. You have to speak and listen to them. Give words of hope and encouragement. They love to have a daily dose of words of inspiration from you. Next, quality time. Your child's love language is quality time if they want your undivided attention. They want you to be with them, doing things or playing with them. In other words, they need you to spend time with them. How can you relate with them? Make sure to have a definite time you can spend with them to do simple things together like reading or drawing. You could also be playing tennis or board games with them. You can also go on a trip or hiking. Next, gifts. Your child's love language is gifts if they value receiving gifts. For them, gifts symbolize the love and affection from the giver. And these do not have to be expensive. How can you relate with them? Do your best to know what gives value to your child and give them presents or gifts to represent them. Just make sure that these are age appropriate. Next, physical touch. Your child's love language is physical touch if he or she longs for expression of physical affection like a kiss, a hug, or even a gentle touch. How can you relate with them? Find ways on how you can integrate physical touch in your daily routines. A pat on the shoulder means a lot to them. It can give them a boost to start their day's assignment or work. They also love playing games together. And the fifth one is acts of service. Your child's love language is acts of service if he or she longs for thoughtful gestures like doing a community service. They also love if you could help them meet their needs. How can you relate with them? Consider their needs and spend time responding to them, like helping them complete a challenging assignment or supporting them in any acts of service they want to extend to other people. Now that we have looked into each of the 5 love languages and how we can use them to better relate with our children, we go back to the 2 questions I posted earlier. If your child's love language is physical touch, is it recommended to lay your hands on him? If your child's love language is quality time, is it okay to give her a timeout? The answer to each of these questions is no. How then can you use these love languages to address misbehaviors of children? As strongly suggested by Dr. Chapman, never use the child's love language to address their misbehaviors, or do not use their love language as a method of discipline. For example, if you want to impose a consequence to inappropriate actions of children whose love language is physical touch, never lay your hands on them, withhold hugs, or respond in a physically negative way. Instead, you can either ask them to do an act of service, like asking them to help complete the assignment of their siblings. Another one, do not use condemning or accusing words to children whose love language is words of affirmation. What else? If the love language is quality time, do not use isolation as a form of punishment. Again, the key here is not to use the child's love language as a way to discipline. When you understand the child's primary love language, you discipline with love and makes your action more effective. That's it for today, and cheers to a happy and successful parenting. Remember to subscribe to my channel. It may not matter to you, but it means so much to me. Thanks for...
Okay, so the kids just brought me so much joy. There's so many cute kids in there. That was one of my favorite parts about that.
So what I think one of the things that jumped out at me this time is just that makes a lot of sense is not to use a child's love language against them. And that like a timeout for someone who means a different thing for someone whose love language is quality time than for someone whose love language is words of affirmation. And similar, your words of affirmation, calling them names or saying something very harshly, or withholding loving words, it hurts more and is a harsher punishment, I would say, than something else.
Yeah, besides all the cuteness overload, that was the main thing that stood out for me too. And it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how that would affect your discipline style and your parenting style. Tamara says, good video, totally makes sense not to use their love language as punishment. And I was thinking, wow, because we've been doing it right. And Maria says, wow, I can see the value of not using the love language as a tool for punishment, but I can recall areas where I've messed that up.
Yeah, me too. So, and I know Katrina's asking about the sign-in sheet. I mean, if you're on, we have a record of who's on the video, who's on these webinars, who registered, and then who attends. And if you need a certificate, we're willing to, we do that too. Octavia says, new insight. Yeah. Right. So let's go to the next. We have just a couple of questions that we hope we need you all to help us with. That's good information to share with clients too, help them identify their children's love languages. Yes, I think it's also a way of talking about positive discipline that's not talking about it as a toolbox, but that's very relatable. Because I think for me, I can understand that why physical touch, a negative physical touch would be more devastating to me than to somebody whose love language isn't physical touch, And so I think if I can understand that for me as a parent, I could understand that for my child as well. And that's also, I mean, it's like, it's not like radically new information, but it is reinforcing the fact that personalities are different, and what works with one child won't work with another. And this may be part of why, because all children and all people need to feel belonging, right? And need to feel loved in their families.
Yep. Octavia said, my son's love language is words of affirmation, and now I know why he's highly upset when he's reprimanded just by me expressing verbally my disappointments.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to think that for some, we kind of tend to, well, maybe I shouldn't generalize, but I kind of learned somewhere along the line that, expressing it verbally was like the first thing, and yelling and being more, I don't know, emphatic was escalating, and then swatting a child on the bottom was like an escalation of that. But that's not necessarily true. If the love languages, if a child would rather, if you say stop that and give them a tap on the butt, I'm not.
We're talking about healthy discipline, because we know people have different views, but right. Healthy.
What this is saying is that for somebody whose love language is of words of affirmation, that's way better, because at least they won't feel like it's hitting them in the I'm not loved place.
Or internalize it. Maybe this has to be discussed, but is there blends of love languages? My youngest seemed to be a mix. I have to be very careful of expressing disapproval. It's tough.
Yeah, and Andrea, I think, when you take the quiz, you can see that you're 30% this, 30% that, 20% this, 15% that. And all of us have all of the love languages. All of us speak some words of affirmation, speak some physical touch, speak some acts of service. So it's not like we are completely illiterate, or that, but it's just that some things matter more to some of us. There's a huge imbalance. Like one of the love languages is like 70%, and the other ones are very small amounts. And for some of us, we're more equally balanced. So people are different.
But you know what, Katthe? So now that I think about my twins, and because of the acts of service, like them fighting doesn't bother me as much as me asking them to clean up. Like I will almost sometimes ignore them fighting, like, oh, they'll work it out, unless it gets like ridiculous. But them not cleaning up really bothers me. So that's a different lens for me as well. And Andrea said, yes, that makes sense. She's so sensitive and very smart, so it's hard. Thankfully, she makes good decisions most of the time. Yeah, that's how I feel about the girls, except for that room. Anybody, what brave soul is going to come and let us hear your voice and get some of your energy? Don't be shy. We don't have to see you. We just want to hear you.
We're looking for somebody to raise their hand.
So Colette says, my love language is physical touch, 33% quality time. Oh, physical touch is 33%, quality time is 37%. I was surprised because I thought acts of service was my love language, and it was only 3%. Right. So to your point, Katthe.
Sometimes I think that quality time and acts of service can get confused a little bit. If quality, and Alexandra was saying is that when you do something specifically because someone likes it, that's an act of service. So if you're giving quality time.
Or like, I remember one of the questions that
we have a hand up.
Yay. Okay, great.
Andrew wants the link to the quiz again. So put that in there. Who is raising their hand? Andrew, can you unmute them?
Yep.
And we will. And it's
Maria. Thank you, Maria.
So I have a remote learner next to me. That's why I wasn't going to talk. But I've read this book prior to marrying my husband. It was part of our church's requirement to read different books and stuff. And we even had a seminar on this. So I always knew my love language. But that was before kids. And I realized that there's my little remote learner saying hello. I realized that the area in which I'm in the weakest is the one that my husband's dominant in. And even one of our children And it's like, this is just a reminder, even with families, like someone said about making sure we share this information with clients. I think it is extremely useful, because as a mom, I need to be very intentional and very committed to recognizing that this is the way, this is one of the ways my child communicates, so that anytime, even when there's not conflict, just making sure I'm making that connection with my child. And even in my spousal relationship, just being more intentional
So
and committed.
Maria, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
But I was wondering, you said that you and your husband balance each other out. Does that help within the parenting? You was like, he has one and that he's good at, and you have another one. Does that help balance y'all's parenting styles, you think? I mean, it'll probably balance in the relationship, but
Totally, because his primary language, love language, is our middle son's primary love language as well, and he can come in and, and do a better job of like de-escalating him and just having a conversation, where I'm so emotional and just like annoyed by the fact that he didn't do something that I asked him to do. So yeah, definitely.
nice, nice. I love how that your church made you do that before. I think that's so important before you get married.
Thank you, Maria. That Portia. Portia is also has her hand raised. So Portia, next.
Uh, I'm a foster parent, and it takes a while sometime to learn the new children's love language. And sometimes it's almost as if I'm thinking today with the new placement, I think we've sabotaged the placement because I have read her so wrong. But the one delightful thing that we figured out is she likes giving. However, she does not like touch. And I'm a huggy, touchy, feely kind of person. And she basically like wards me off as if I'm an evil spirit, if she even thinks I'm going to get close to her. So this has given me some food for thought to truly have a dialogue with her so that I can hear how she feels and let her express to me what her love languages are. I'm actually going to share this with her when she gets home from school today.
Yeah, thank you, Portia. I'm so excited too, because they have a test specifically for children and teens. So then you can have them take it, and they love all these little quizzes. They do them all the time. So yeah, thank you for sharing with us.
And I had that situation also, Portia, with a child, with my son who we adopted when he was 8 years old. And because of his past experience, he did not like physical touch at all. It was scary, for him. So that's sometimes happens with trauma, and
Yes.
and sometimes it can be like what happened over time is like he could not be hugged when he first, but I could like go by him and pat him on the shoulder, like pat him on the shoulder, or like we desensitized him over time, you know. So
just a little touch here, a little touch there.
A little touch here, a little touch there, so it wouldn't be, and but it's all about safety, right? It's all about feeling safe and feeling connected and feeling loved. So thank you so much, Portia, for sharing. It really is so much deeper when people tell us the real stories. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we're waiting. We have a few. Katrina says, I was raised with 80% quality, 20% touch, which is what I did with my children. However, each of them required something different. Thank you.
Let's go to the first question we had too. And I think some of you have already answered this. I mean, Maria talked about this and so did Portia, but how do you think the 5 love languages can inform or change your parenting? What do you think you're going to do with this information from this webinar today? And again, we're looking for hands. Anybody who wants, brave souls who want to speak.
So while they're thinking, I know what I'm going to do immediately when I'm finished with my work done. I'm like, hey, girls, come take this so I can see or get the accurate. And then I think it's going to change the way I discipline them. I think it's going to change because I do, like when I was saying earlier, I really feel hurt when they don't clean their room up. And I've asked them several times. I really feel like a whole kind of way. But when they're arguing, I'm just like, so I think it's going to change once I know their love languages. It's going to change how I discipline them. And it's not going to be, and I try really carefully because they're twins to like, and identical to be like, okay, you're two different people. Because even sometimes they act as if they're your unit, but I like discipline them together. So, oh, you both can't do this or you both can't do that because of the room. But I may need to like change what the thing of discipline is based on their love language. So I think that's what's going to happen for me.
I'm also, my son's 29, but I'm going to get him to take the quiz because I'm going to get him to take the quiz. Kim says, looking at my various grandchildren, they love words of encouragement. Since this pandemic, I've cut back on hugging and kissing just out of protecting them. Yep.
No other
Who else
brave
would
souls.
like to talk? Raise your hand and tell us what you're going to do with this information, either for the families that you work with or for your own family. And how, and Tammy, you said you felt like it can inform parenting. You want to tell us a little more? Like actually raise your hand and talk?
Hey, thank you, Tammy.
Hi,
Hi, Tammy.
you can hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that it absolutely can inform parenting, and I'm definitely going to use it, at least with some of the families that I'm working with. I have a couple jumping out at me because I've seen some things when we were having virtual visits recently that really kind of jabbed at my heart, but it wasn't one of those things that you can, jump in and say, stop, don't do that, And I think that if these moms will understand a little bit more about love languages and not just their kids, but their own as well, maybe they'll see why their methods were not very effective.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I really did think about it. You know how vanguard and innovative we are at V Strong Families. I was really thinking, I was like, what if this was actually a part of practice? Like, how would that, is particularly in prevention or the first sight or something, like that was the thought that I just thought about when Tamara was talking. Like, how would it change the dynamics within the like child welfare system or family serving organizations?
Well, that's like when we first, Tara has her hand raised. Or, I know it's not Tara because I remember that your name was different when you said hello. So, but it says Tara, but we're unmuting you. Tara, what's your name really? I can scroll back. Because she might not.
She's still, oh, there she is.
You have to unmute yourself.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Can't hear you. You need to unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm Beatriz.
Okay.
What for me, I'm surprised because it's an act of love, and always I'm helping people around, and tell me that that my act of love is really high. That put me happy because it's what I'm doing always.
Okay.
And always I have words of affirmation for my family and for the people around. And that was a 23. And receiving people around is something that helped me a lot because I'm a very social person. Then I'm very happy that the results, I never take this test and I'm enjoying
Good.
what I receive.
Thank you, Mitra.
It's always really great to feel like it, more known and to know more about yourself, like to be affirmed, right? Octavia says, oops, sorry, personally, I'm familiar with the love languages as a wife and mom, but glean new information today. Professionally, I'm now thinking that the love languages can certainly be applied as a leader/supervisor with staff and parents for our family success centers. Nice.
Yes.
That's the same. I think when Tammy was saying also about the VIA character inventory, we had a webinar on that as well, and that helps. And the positive tools, you know. So it's, and Tammy says, I think these things can help parents learn more about the little people in their lives. Some parents believe they need to mold their kids rather than taking the time to know the people that they are.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, and Maria says, I think it can strengthen families' ability to communicate and connect. I wonder how to tap into the languages with families that have a lot of trauma or are accustomed to considering the child's voice or not considering the child's voice.
And you know what that brought up for me when I asked the question about the child welfare piece, and we were talking about the touch. When I think it was Portia that shared, I wonder if a child or a person's love language is something, and then the trauma changes it, and then when you get into your resilience and it heals back, and those connections are made back, does it go back to that? I mean, I don't have the answer to that, but that's just something that came up for me. Also based on what I think you just said, Portia just said, was it Portia? No, Octavia.
On that side, Alexandra, I think that, like, I know that's definitely true for me. Like, if you're not getting what you need, you learn to accept other things. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Learn to,
right.
like, try to figure out how to get something from the things that are around you, you know? So
yeah, because the way you say that now, because if you think about the adjustments I've made in relationships, it's probably the same thing applies to trauma. Like, you make these adjustments for other people, but it's really not the way that you want to be loved.
Right. But you can accept it because it's like, you know, like with food, right? You know, you have preferences, but you got to eat.
right, exactly.
So even if the preference isn't there, you got to eat. So let's see. Let's go to the last question. Oh, Portia, did you want to say something else? Did you re-raise your hand?
I did re-raise my hand.
Awesome.
And in that piece about understanding when you're working with children in the system, one good thing I was thinking is that if a case manager has been with a kid for a while and they've had several placements, it would be really nice for them to be able to let children take that love language test to help the new placement out in that honeymoon phase. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I was thinking is that not only just for the children in foster care in our home, but it's also very important to be just as astute for the children that you come in contact with, whether or not it's classroom. You know, I'm a daycare provider as well, and to know that we send the wrong message to children kind of really makes me set back, as in to say, why are we not discovering the importance of this earlier in children's lives?
Excellent point. Great point. I even made me think, Portia, like, and if the foster parents, like, what if they could, like, match up if the foster parents, so you're placing kids based on everybody knowing their love language. Yeah, great point.
All right, we have our last question. We only have a few more minutes, but what do you think about the connection between children's challenging behavior and the 5 love languages? What do you think about the connection between children's challenging behavior and the 5 love languages?
I don't know. My first thought comes because I've shared up. Y'all really don't understand about these rooms, but like, I'm like, okay, because they like touch and affirmation. How does that then translate into me getting them to be of service and clean their rooms up beyond just the ordinarily you have to do it because it's responsible? Because I joke with them. I was like, you know, y'all gonna get kicked out of your dorm with this behavior, with these rooms. You know, your roommate's not gonna want. And so I don't know.
I'll tell you from a words of affirmation person, if when the room is clean, you say, oh, wow, how this looks amazing. Like, what a good job you did cleaning your room. Like, oh my gosh, like, should we decorate it? Like, what poster do you want to put on? Like, that kind of thing means a lot. Then I want to do it more because I want that praise. Like, I'm looking for that praise. I'm
I
not
do
saying
that.
but the negatives talk, like saying, like continuing to say negative stuff about it isn't going to motivate me. But if you
Mm.
say something positive, then it's going to motivate me. You see?
I do that. I say the positive, but right back the next day, it's like they clean up. The only time they clean up really well is when they want to go somewhere, when they want to do something. Other than that, a regular day, they can be like, oh, it's straight and up. Okay, wait a minute. So Elda said children are not getting their needs met when their parents are not speaking their love language. It was her answer to the question.
And Portia said, understanding their love language, I think it will help reduce negative behaviors.
I do too. So maybe I'm gonna have to figure this out. I'm just gonna ask them because my kids are at the point we had those conversations. Because I'm like, what do I need to do so we can solve this problem? You tell me. We have those type of conversations about the room.
That always worked with me. Like, saying, we have this problem. What do you need me to do? I need you to do this. What do you need me to do?
Yeah.
Fix it.
And it's much better. It's gotten better. I mean, some of them it just be age because I've also had friends, Katthe, we talked about it too, that sometimes they just grow out of it. Like by the time they get, to college.
I'm very clean now, very orderly and very like everything. My room growing up as a teenager, especially, was like a total mess. And when I cleaned it, it was like a multi-day process. I threw everything in the middle of the room and then I went through it like one by one, and it took a lot of days.
That's what happened yesterday. Exactly like that.
I was. Oh, sorry.
No, so yeah. Any chance the quiz is available in Spanish? I would hope so. I'm not sure, Jonathan.
I'm pretty sure it is available in multiple languages.
That would be great.
And yes, sending information, the quiz, the link, we've put the link a couple times. Let's see, so much goes into challenging behavior and the responses we should have. I think the utilizing the love languages can be another tool in our toolbox. To follow a woman who said that's how she cleaned her room as a teen both times.
and my kids will be like, well, mommy, you know that there'll be the word one will be like, that my scientists will be like, mommy, you know that people who are really smart, they're junky, like Einstein. Like that'll be the rebuttal that I have to be like, okay.
Well, also, I mean, like to me, it really is a reflection of the clutter in my mind. Like it really was like I'm a big one on environmental vitality and having the way that your space looks reflect what you want to feel like. And I know as a teenager, there was a lot of chaos and there was a lot of, I was emotionally upset a lot, about what was going on. So it was a reflection of the chaos that was in my head, and cleaning it up did help that. So that might be another thing, to another inspiration or another, lens or way in. Well, thank you everybody. It's like 3 minutes and it went pretty fast for me. Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you everybody for being here and participating. And as I said, Alexandra and I are gonna do this holding space for conversation every Friday. And next Friday, it's Inspiration Friday, when you're tired of talking about it or there's nothing to say. And our thought there is, prior to, you can help us co-create the PowerPoint and just send us something that is inspiring to you, some words or a picture, and be sure that you can and just be able to talk about it. But we're just going to go fill our cup with inspiration on next Friday. And then you can see that on Monday, NAMI will be back with, that's a National Alliance for Mental Illness. And that's a great webinar about reducing stigma of mental illness. We're going to be here with Rafael about fathers, and then fun ways to get families involved in fitness at home, and then understanding and supporting multiple intelligences while remote learning. I know that's a really important one in terms of all of us that are supporting our remote learners is like understanding the concept of multiple intelligences and how to help your children learn. So,
And Andrew, can you put in the email? I believe it's to email Paul for the certificates. Is that correct, Kathy?
yeah, I mean, Andrew, how do people get certificates? Put who they should email for a certificate. Because Katrina, we don't just send them out like all the time. We send them out when people need them to show their boss or they want them for themselves. So if you want one, we will create one for you. And hashtag amplify, share on social media about the love languages. Hashtag amplify, love, right?
Yep.
So
Hashtag
all
amplify.
at strongfamilies.net. And anybody, there was a mass email sent out this week that had your first name on it and said, "Hi, Elda, we want you to do a webinar." That was a mass email that went out. I'm getting lots of emails in return, which is kind of great. If you want to host a conversation, if you know somebody you'd like a topic to be covered, or you know somebody who would do a great webinar with us, please give me a little email and we'll get it on the schedule. So for now, thank you very much. Amplify love languages.
Amplify love languages and parenting.
Yep.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.